You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. So good morning, everyone. We are here with Kimberly Herrell, with the president of Schubach Aviation. How are you this morning, Kimberly?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thanks. So we want to know all about your journey and how you got to be the president of an aviation company, a private aviation company, which is really exciting. So first, let's start with a fun story about yourself that maybe our listeners may not know about you.
Sure. I spent kind of the latter part of my teenage years living in Hawaii. I graduated high school early. I lived in Maui for about a year and a half. And I felt like it really kind of, I grew up in Utah, so I felt like that really kind of shaped, it opened my mind a lot to just kind of different ways of approaching life. And I feel like it was just a really kind of critical time in you know, my early developmental time of becoming an adult to spend out there. It was pretty cool.
Well, Hawaii is certainly a beautiful place to live. I've never lived there. I know many of our listeners probably are very jealous about that. What a beautiful place. So what actually got you interested in the aviation industry? That's kind of a path that I think a lot of women don't generally take.
Yeah. So for me, the interest was really, well, I'll kind of start at the beginning. I was kind of fresh out of college. I was working at the only 5-star hotel in Salt Lake City during the 2002 Olympics as a concierge. And I essentially struck up a relationship with the kind of the only jet charter company out of Salt Lake City at the time. We were like coordinating, you know, transporting dignitaries back and forth from the hotel. And I kind of got close with them during that time. And for me, my interest was really the adventure that it represented. I'm just a adventure at freedom seeker at heart, I guess. And, you know, to me, private jets are kind of like a portal to adventure, and they just open up so many possibilities. So I had kind of just shown interest that way. And they actually very much out of the blue contacted me. They were growing really fast and they felt like they didn't quite have their customer service up to standard. I had just been through Ritz-Carlton training through the hotel I was working at. And they had been impressed with me during our interactions during the 2002 Olympics, and asked me if I might come on board and help them, you know, level up their customer service. And so that's where it all started. And it's a very, you know, it's a lot of stress, a lot of action, and it just ended up being a place that I really thrived in. And you know, I still feel the same excitement about aircraft and again the freedom that they represent.
Well, I think aviation and jumping on a plane and going on an adventure is a lot of us feel that way, right? And I think opening that up to women and starting out in this industry, and you've been doing this a while, haven't you? I mean, like almost, how long has it been?
19 years. Yeah.
19 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, I got involved in 2002. So, yeah.
Wow. So what would be one word that you think would describe you best?
I think it's dynamic. I've had to adapt, pivot, become a lot of different things. And I think my ability to do that throughout the course of my career has really helped open up doors and get me places.
Yeah, well, that definitely helps. And especially in a situation where, right now, a lot of people are not flying. There's kind of been this whole thing since COVID. And I think, kind of looking at that big picture, how do you think now during COVID and success, what does that mean to you? And how have you changed during all of this?
Well, I actually now own the company. I acquired Schubach Aviation in January of 2020, along with a partner. COVID was just like a kind of just starting to become a word. I mean, it was not on my radar at all. And so to have, my first year of business ownership end up being, 2020 COVID year, there was a lot of adapting, a lot of changing. And it definitely, it wasn't what I had envisioned at all. Or, I had all these great plans and I really had to kind of slow those down. And at the time, just focus on keeping my employees safe, keeping our aircraft, a safe space to be for clients, finding these new ways to operate and kind of in this new terrain. Thankfully, private aviation is kind of having a moment. And I find that during any time of sort of natural disaster, or, now this pandemic, private aviation really kind of shines because we're able to connect families, we're able to mobilize so quickly, get people where they need to go. And suddenly it moves from a luxury to like almost a necessity and part of the critical infrastructure. So we were able to support in that way, especially at the beginning, which was pretty cool. To circle back to your question, how do I measure success? For me, it's really, I'm a person that I've always said that in my mind, I've always worked for myself and I always set my own standards to hold myself to. And so for me, success is really putting out work I'm proud of. I'm also very much a creative. And it's funny because I'm not necessarily working in a creative industry, but that's just the way I'm wired. And I really, ideas come to life and new programs online and seeing people appreciate them and actually become a reality. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And then really as well, personally, success for me is really being able to kind of live and work on my terms and enjoy my family and, do the things that we like to do. And there's not necessarily big material markers of success for me, but it's more really being able to live in a way that I'm able to choose and do things that fill me up.
Well, actually not starting a new business, but acquiring a business right before COVID definitely is not something easy. I mean, gosh, could it be any worse?
No.
I mean, really. And, a lot of people talk about resilience, but I in adapting and pivoting and all of that, I think back to what you had said a little bit earlier, new things. And to me, that's innovation. And so, kind of looking at any failures that you've had, how have they led to help you through this? Because certainly, a major pandemic and acquiring this sort of business really has probably taken a toll. There's probably things that you learned in the past that have kind of led you to succeed better during this time. Do you want to share any failures, or do you not have any that were so significant that you remember them? And I'm just curious about that.
One of my favorite things I've read was in the book Principles by Ray Dalio. There are times when things are going, when I do have a failure, I absolutely try to use it as a, if I don't get a client I'm trying to get or, trying to bring on or, just kind of the smaller failures you can maybe experience in a business. I really do use that as a fuel for growth and a time to step back and for self-awareness. I have actually let go of those situations where it felt a pretty unjust and unfair. And like they didn't see me for who I was, but instead I really took that and self-reflected and took it to heart. And I walked into my next job and I was absolutely a rock star. I day one. I was like the MVP on the sales team, and just, I really actually used that to kind of catapult me forward and, and better myself.
Well, and that's, I think we all kind of say, okay, maybe this isn't for me. Now maybe I'll move on. And it's a little bit different, I think, with when my parents were growing up, my dad always worked the same exact job his whole life, and he never really evolved much. So I think, now, and especially, I think with our younger generation, they kind of are looking at, well, let me try this. And if that doesn't work out, maybe I'll try something else. So I do think, learning things from jobs that we go through is important to lead us where we're going. So, now let's just talk about life, like balancing work and regular life responsibilities. Do you have any things that work great for you that you want to share with our listeners today?
Sure. Yeah. So when I had my daughter 9 years ago, I really didn't want to have to choose between motherhood and my career. I felt pretty torn about it, but I also knew I needed to be present with my daughter more than, typical career demands. And there's probably about 4 or 5 times I thought Henry Schubach was going to fire me because I've drawn these really hard lines in the sand. And this was one of them. And I essentially walked into his office and said, I love my job. I love what I do here, but, my life has changed. And essentially you can see me 20 hours a week, and you can trust me that the rest of the work will get done, or not. And I feel like flex days were just not a thing back then. It just wasn't even a concept. Either you were at work in the office or you weren't working. And he really surprised me, and he said, okay. And he supported me. And it's funny because during this time of early motherhood is when I felt like I really actually kind of found my place in my career. And I think part of it is having the flexibility to still live my life and still be able to do the things I need to do. And also having the ability to continue my job. And part of it I realized is that I sort of was able to really focus on the things at work that I really liked to do with my time. And kind of the other stuff I was able to bring in other people to work on. And in doing so, work became less work and more fun and more things I like to do. And overall, as far as balancing work and life, I personally keep it more fluid. I know some people are really big on you're at work or you're at home. And for me, that just has never worked. So, my daughter can be a fixture in the office in the afternoons. She's done photo shoots with me. She's got a lot of opinions. She's the vice president of the snack closet. That's her job. So my husband too, he works really hard. So we just keep it a little more fluid, and we include our daughter when we can. And when it is time to really unplug, we don't feel bad, and we take that time as well.
Well, I think that's important, but it's also a great story to share with women because, a lot of times people think, well, I can't do this because I also want to have kids. And so the fact that you can sometimes balance both is great because that, you can have it all in some instances. And I think, finding that path is important. And I loved what you said a little bit earlier, too, about it doesn't really seem like work all of the time. I think it's important to also find something that you're very passionate about, that you can really put a different part of you into it that's a little bit different than, just going to a job 9 to 5 every day, 5 days a week. I think, having that passion for something really translates into a better experience. So, working in a world that I would say is probably mostly men, have you experienced any resistance while you're leading men in your role as president of Schubach Aviation?
I have. I think when I first became president, there were definitely a couple of kind of longtime employees that really struggled with it. And for me, it was really a time of growth because I had to really learn to let go and to just not, to really see the difference between what people think of me or want to project on me versus who I actually am. And I really kind of strengthened that boundary within myself. And I look at that period as a time of growth. And now my team is great. And I don't feel a lot of resistance from within the company. Outside of the company, I mean, it's definitely an extremely male dominated industry, especially when you get into higher level positions and C-suite, and especially in the beginning, I kind of knew I might be underestimated. And I looked at this as, well, if I've got your attention now, I could show you differently. And, but at least I've got your attention, I guess. So it's, I really tried to find the advantages. And I think over the years, if I walk into a room with a bunch of egos and I'm an empathetic person and I'm able to relate to people, and I don't need an ego boost. I'm not here for that. And I think that that's actually, really helped in both, de-escalating tough situations at times that I think would have gone otherwise, had we had two people with larger egos, trying to work through something, and as well as just relationship and trust building.
I loved what you said, underestimated. I feel that way too. And I think, a lot of times you come into an industry where there are a lot of men predominantly, and they look at you and they think, oh, she's this female, she's maybe soft and not, going to be a go-getter. I think the underestimation actually helps us in our careers, because I think it kind of poises us for a position where we can just jump right in, and then your content. When you know your content, I think there's no stopping you. But I'm curious, what do you feel like is one of your most significant barriers in this career? I
do sometimes. While I do have what I think is a good work-life balance, it can be hard to be a working mother. 2 nights ago, I had 2 major, cash flow proposals I needed to get out, and I'm helping my daughter with her school project because she has to have it tomorrow. And, and that can get frustrating for me, because I think, well, my counterparts who are all male don't have to do this. They've got someone else doing these things with their children, and but I'm not able to do that. And so I'm the one that stays up till 11 midnight. Now that we've got her project done, now I've got to actually work on, my projects. And so the time can be a little, it is tough. I do have to kind of, I guess, realign my attitude around that sometimes, because it can feel challenging.
Well, and, but I also see that as being encouraging, because, we all feel like we fall short at times, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got motherhood, and, I loved what you said about your daughter. It was Ella, right?
Uh-huh.
How she would come to photo shoots with you and all of that. My poor kids had to go out and wave signs. So, election signs during campaign season. So, you've got all these different things that our kids are, but it also exposes them too.
I think so too. I think that it's setting them up for taking more responsibility. I mean, she takes her project so seriously, and how she does, she really wants to deliver something that she's proud of. And it's fun to pass that on to her.
Well, and that's what this podcast is all about. It's about encouraging young women, and having your daughter look at you and say, gosh, that's my mom. And, really taking her all of her schoolwork and all that very seriously, and seeing all that you're doing. I think that's actually very cool.
Yeah.
I wonder, our listeners that are out there today, is there something that you've learned that you would like to articulate to them, of a lesson or something that you've applied to your life that maybe they could take with them, that really kind of will help them today?
What's kind of coming to mind now as I kind of go back to when I first became president and had a bit of resistance, I really had to kind of lean into my own self-worth and really separate what was happening around me. And that was a huge lesson, as well as the last couple years, as I've learned things and kind of grown in my career now to owning the company, something that a few years ago I probably wouldn't have even fathomed was possible, is you do just have to really push yourself to keep leveling up as far as your thoughts and what you think is possible. And the more success I experience, the more I look back and I really see times where if you don't believe something's possible, if you're really not mentally getting there first, it's just never going to happen. And then I think the other pattern I see when I look back is just really following my intuition and really trusting that. But if there was one lesson that I would impart to young women, it's really like your one superpower is that there's only one you, and you really need to lean into that, embrace that. And the way you're wired is the way you're wired. You're not going to be good at everything. Nobody is. But the more you start really understanding what lights you up when you do it, that's what you're supposed to do. And the more you do that, the more your intuition will grow. And I think the more magnetic you become, and the more you sort of attract opportunities to you, or you recognize them when they come. And the more I've done that later in my career, I do think things just really started aligning.
Well, and that's kind of like your career choosing you, right? Back to what you said a little bit earlier, finding that journey and then, seeing as opportunities open up. And, I always tell young people every time I talk to them, whether they're at a Boys and Girls Club or Brownies and Boy Scouts, I always tell them, try things that feel a little bit hard for you. Obviously not, unsafe or anything like that, but try something that's a little bit hard, something that really, might be something to help you grow. Because think about when you were 19 years old, your job back then, and how all of the different jobs have really shaped you and helped you come to where you are today. And, and finding that passion. And, so about your industry, what is the thing that you're most passionate about that you bring to the table, Kim, that no one else does? Because you talked about your uniqueness, which is definitely true. And I try not to, judge myself and compare myself to others, because you're absolutely correct. There are so many different people that are good at all of these things that I'm terrible at. But I do also have, the things that I am good at. What do you bring to the table that really sets you apart in your industry that you're very passionate about?
I definitely, like I said, I'm a creator, and I love bringing experiences to life. So I really look at everything from a flight being in it, your entire flight experience, doing these really cool customer experiences in our hangar, or creating these kind of bringing different partners together. I've really sort of built a community around my clients, my aircraft owners. A lot of it bringing in some of art, food, things that I really like that are just natural for me to do. And in doing so, I've really built a lot of relationships. It's fun. I really enjoy it. And I think, again, I look at everything as kind of experiential, even from, the office space we have, or the, if you're buying an aircraft, or you're going on an experience from start to finish, and how do we help you kind of curate that and guide you through it and manage expectations. So I'm always kind of very, very cognizant of that.
Well, that sounds to me like customer service, which I think is one thing that we do very well as women. We're very good with details, and not all of us. I mean, certainly we're not all the same, but I think as a whole, a lot of women are very much into customer service. And, back to what you said earlier about an experiential experience, not everyone thinks about that. They think, oh, I just hop on a plane, or, oh, I'm just going to purchase a plane, or, whatever that is. I think, that's important to remember, that it is about the experience and taking time and really
kind of
enjoying
transactional versus experiential.
Yeah, for sure. So what's next on your journey? What are you doing next? What are your plans?
Now that we're kind of, COVID, we seem to be at least on the final stretch. I'm just really looking forward to just settling into my role as an owner. It was definitely an interesting first year to have to really shift all my focus onto what was happening in the moment. So I'm really looking forward to just settling in and growing and building and doing sort of some of the things I wanted to do prior, as well as just being able to spend some more time with my family. We've got some, fun travel. We want to get on the books. We've been doing a couple really great trips lately, and just ready to just be in my zone for a while.
I think a lot of people are thinking that the traveling aspect of just everyone feeling like I really want to get out and again experience things and really stop being in this small bubble that I'm in and really getting back out there, because I think as a whole our people want to experience things. They want to try things. They want to get out there and see the beautiful world, and I think you lead a path to that. So as far as advice for our next generation of young women, what would you say is something that would be something that's really important for them to remember or for them to try or experience? What would be one thing, or, it doesn't have to be one thing, but what would be some advice that you would give our next generation of female leaders?
I think to really understand yourself and take stock of your true strengths and understand that that's, I personally think you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to do everything. To really lean into what you're good at, I think is huge. And to understand that, and it's okay to try different careers. It's okay to not know exactly what you want to do. But I think if you know who you are, and you're putting yourself into different situations, you're getting out there, you can be open to recognizing opportunity when it comes. I think for me, recognizing opportunities that I had when maybe others around me didn't recognize opportunities also really helped me grow in my career.
Well, and also all the things that happen in our life, right? I think they all shape us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't you feel like also when you have like things you go, oh gosh, I remember I worked in escrow for a short amount of time, like 3 months. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, that is not for me. Mm-hmm. But it did actually help me put me back on the path that I did end up taking. And, I think those things really do help shape you. And it's okay to go, okay, wow, that was an epic fail. I did not like that. But really, I think
know what
also,
you don't like is
right.
important.
It brings you back to the path that you go, okay, yeah, that's right. I tested that. No, I know where I need to be. So thank you for so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And I'm so proud of you. What an exciting career. The president of Schubach Aviation and owner now, which wow, during COVID, I think you have nowhere to go but up. And, that is a pun, but truly, I mean, nowhere to go but up, and really just an exciting thing. You're based out right there in Carlsbad.
Mm-hmm. We are,
right?
yeah.
And I wish you the best of luck with your daughter, and I hope to see you in the future. I would love to.
I hope so too.
Definitely,
we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us today, and you take care.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.